Now, there is fierce competition ahead of the local government elections. At this point, parties are not really talking about coalition governments. It's all part of the political bravado to instill confidence in voters. But it's surely something they are considering. Both the ANC and DA say they are confident, outright victory in Joburg, Ekurhuleni and Tshwane they will get. But political commentator Makhosini Mgitywa believes these municipalities will be led by coalitions. Now, he joins us now to discuss this. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. Now, are coalition governments the future in South Africa? And I think more importantly, do you think this is the answer to failing governance?
Good morning. I think so. I think that coalition governments are the future. If you look elsewhere in the world, you don't find the situation where there is one dominant party in a country anymore. In South Africa, we still have a dominant party, the African National Congress, in that it governs 8 of the 9 provinces and, the biggest number of the municipalities. But you can see in metro areas that the situation is beginning to change, that the ANC is being dropped down to below 50%. And if it is below 50%, then it only has the plurality of votes, but does not have a majority that can allow it to form a government. In Ekurhuleni, where I stay, they have, entered into a coalition with various political parties, and that coalition seems to be stable. It is the case in Johannesburg as well. In Tshwane, it is the DA. So I'm saying that, as we move and forward and more political parties are coming, independents can now run, individually for elections. Civic organizations are coming up everywhere because people are seeing that, the system that they've had up to so far is not working for them, and they're putting trust in smaller parties and independent candidates.
So basically,
it becomes their...
So do you think that the smaller players will now become potential kingmakers in this election?
Without a doubt. Initially, the ANC was prevented by the EFF from forming a government in the city of Johannesburg and in Tshwane. It was the EFF that actually stopped the ANC from forming a government, and the EFF, was not one of the big parties. So you can have a situation, for instance, where, in a certain metro, the ANC does not have the majority and the DA does not have the majority, and one of them must form a government. And you may find a situation that the mayorship can even go to a smaller party if that is what can make the coalition to work. That is the case in Nelson Mandela Bay, for instance. So it is possible that, in fact, I think it's going to happen in many municipalities and in many metros, that smaller parties are going to be kingmakers and are going to be the deciders of who governs. Let me make an example, for instance, with the United States. In the United States, you have got 40% of the population of voters being Democrats, 40% being Republicans. And every time the election is decided by the 20% of independents, those are the people who decide whether it is the Democratic Party or the Republican Party that forms. So we are going towards that situation in South Africa.
All right, and it's definitely going to be an interesting elections. I mean, we've seen so many things, leading up to these local government elections. So it is going to be quite interesting to see how the small players will be rising up. And like you mentioned also in 2016, that happened with the EFF. Now, you also mentioned briefly that you believe that the city of Joburg, Ekurhuleni, Tshwane, they will be run by a coalition government after next month's local government elections. Now, explain to us in detail why do you say this?
Look, it is, I think, in Gauteng, the situation is different to other provinces in that, the ANC has been in a steady decline. I'm not saying that it's going to be below 50% on average with all the metros, but certainly that has been the case in 2016, that whilst it had the plurality of votes in the metros, but it did not have an outright majority for it to be able to govern. But also, I think that, what we also need to take into account is that the Democratic Alliance is not as strong as it was in 2016 under Mmusi Maimane, because many people are reluctant within the DA, are reluctant to admit that the best performance on the part of the DA happened under Mmusi Maimane in 2014 and 2016. And when we're seeing the problems that the DA has, you have got Action SA, you've got Herman Mashaba, One South Africa movement of Mmusi Maimane, you've got the Patriotic Alliance. So there are many parties that are contesting for the electoral base of the Democratic Alliance, which may force it to perform worse than it performed in 2016. So that could also have dynamics in terms of who governs these metros. But I do not have a doubt in my mind that some of these metros, if not all of them, are going to fall under coalition governments after the 1st November election.
Well, thank you so much. That's unfortunately all we have time for, but very interesting there. That was political commentator Makhosini Mgitywa.